All right, welcome back, and we're continuing on in this module on the data model, and we're going to talk about a very specific feature that's a really cool one as well called what-if parameters. And we're going to look at how you can actually work with understanding how what-if parameters work, what kind of objects are created with it, and then also how you can integrate those what-if parameters in with your existing model to make it most effective. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what-if parameters and what they are. Really, the idea behind this is to determine what if you had taken a different approach in the business? What if instead of giving a 10% discount to your customers for the month of July, you gave them a 35% discount? So what would have happened had we made those changes? And so what this allows you to do is tweak and see if we had made this slightly different business decision, how would it have impacted our results? And you can easily now integrate that into your Power BI model. Now it does allow you to create a couple objects for you, first of all. It's going to create a new table, it's going to create a new measure, and it's also going to create a slicer for you that will be built into your report automatically so that way you have a nice little slider that you can slide back and forth to determine if I gave a 10% discount versus a 35% discount or a 40% discount, whatever you select. You'll have a nice little slicer, which we'll learn about more in detail later, but you'll have the ability to integrate that into your report automatically with the what-if analysis. And we're going to integrate and take what this provides to us and integrate it into our model so that it actually leverages what the what-if analysis provides to us into our results. So let's actually take a look. Let's dive a little bit deeper now and show you exactly what you can do with this what-if analysis parameter and how exactly it works. All right, so we're working with the model that we've been working on the previous couple modules. You can see I opened up module 5B. That's the completed version of the last video you likely watched. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to create a what-if analysis. Now, this is done underneath the modeling ribbon. So if you go to the ribbon up on the top, you'll see you have home, view, and modeling. You're going to select underneath the modeling ribbon, and you're going to create a new what-if parameter underneath the what-if section here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start by naming this what-if parameter, and we're going to name this discount percent because what we're going to analyze in here is what the results would have been had we given a 5% discount versus a 40% discount versus 50% discount. We want to be able to select a range of values and determine what that discount would have been. So we're going to change the data type because we're looking at a percent discount. I'm going to make this a decimal number. And then you'll see you have a minimum and a maximum value you can select. So this would be the minimum or the maximum discount percent you want to analyze. So for example, the minimum can stay 0, that's fine. But I want to analyze up to maybe perhaps a 50% discount being the highest possible discount someone could have gotten. And so that way it'll give me a range of values I can select from 0 to 50%. The increment you can also analyze. Right now the increment is set to 1, which doesn't really make sense from a percent perspective. So I might make it something like 0.05. You do have to, by the way, prefix it with a 0. It kind of gets confused if you don't put a 0 as a prefix. But we're going to make this as 5% increments. So that way, I'm never giving like less than 5% of a discount. It's always going to be 0 or 5 or 10 or 15, 20, 25, 30, so on and so forth percent. I'm not going to give someone a 17% discount. And so this is going to make it so the increments we see in our discount are done in increments of 5. You could also provide a default value if you wanted to. So default values would just default the slicer we're going to look at to a particular value. Not really any need for that for this scenario. And then the last option that you'll see here is that it's going to automatically add a slicer to this page. Now we haven't talked about slicers yet because it's really something we focus on in a later module as we discuss the data visualizations up in the top here. But a slicer is basically a way of filtering your results. And in this scenario, as we're working with this what-if parameter, it's going to allow us to have a nice little slider here where we can slide back and forth between 5, 10, 15, 20%. And so it really is a visual that we're getting in a little bit early into, but this is what's going to help us do our what-if analysis. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. And when we hit OK, it's going to create several objects for us. One is the slicer that you see up top here. The slicer integrates in with a slider, and the slider allows us to slide back and forth between the different discount percents. Okay, so you can see all those discount percents incremented by 5% here. So you'll notice it goes from 5, 10, 15, 20 inside of the nice little slicer that's provided. You'll also see it creates a couple other objects for us. If you look over on the field list on the right-hand side, you'll notice that it creates a new table for us called discount percent. And inside this discount percent, it has two columns. It has a column called discount percent, which is literally 0.0 to 0.5 to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50% discount values. So those are actually columns inside of a table. I'll show you that here in a few moments. And then the second one here is a measure. And inside that measure, if you were to select that measure, you can see in the formula bar that it's just referring to the selected value that we have inside of our discount percent. So it's basically bringing this in, and it's using the selected value protects us in a couple ways that we're not really ready to get into depth yet because we haven't talked about DEX. But this is a measure that's been automatically created for us that we can use now to integrate in with our other measures that we have. Now, if you go look at the relationship view, you'll see that it creates this new table called discount percent that's kind of free floating here. There's no relationship to it yet. That's fine. It doesn't need a relationship actually because the way that we're going to use it. And if you go look at the data view, you'll see in the data view, if you look at that discount percent table, it's pretty simple. It just has a 0 to 50% in increments of 5, and you can see the generate series actually creates those values here for us. So nicely built in here, it did all that for us. This is something you could have done before. You would have just had to manually do it all yourself, and this new what if parameter actually makes it very easy to do. Now, a couple things you might want to do. You might want to do some formatting on this. So this discount percent right now is showing as a decimal. Maybe I actually want to show it as a percentage here. You can do something like that. So I selected the percentage here. Now it's displaying a percent. And you may want to remove the decimal places to just show a percent that doesn't have any decimal places to it. So something like that. That might make it a little easier to read. So you can see now whenever I look at this, it shows the percentage very nicely and cleanly here. So that's a nice little feature you can add into it. And then what we'll really want to do, though, is we want to integrate what we have created here into a report, and not only into a report, but into a calculation. Now, we haven't talked a ton about calculations yet, other than the fact that you can do them, and they're part of the data model. But to really demonstrate what the what-if analysis does, we do have to create a calculation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new calculation on our internet sales table, and we're going to create a measure. And that measure is basically going to take the total sales amount and take the difference of the total sales amount from the discount percent and see what kind of results we would have if we sold our products at different discount percentages. And so to do this, again, we're going to learn more about this later, so just kind of hang tight with me for this so you can learn how to do the what-if analysis. We're going to right-click on the internet sales table, and we're going to select New Measure. And that's going to open up this formula bar up top here. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the coming up modules, but for now, just kind of watch this. We're then going to create a new measure here, and we're going to call this something like, let's say, this is our sales after discount. So we'll call this sales after discount. Okay. And so what we're going to do in here is we're going to tell it that we want to take the sum of the sales amount. And so this is going to be the sales amount. So let's go to, from our internet sales table, the sales amount column. Okay, so we're summing our sales amount, and we want to take the difference of the total sales amount that we have here and subtract that from the sum of the sales amount that includes the discount. Okay, so we're going to show sum of sales amount here twice, but this time what we're going to actually do is factor in the discount amount. Okay, so let's type in sales amount, and then we're going to multiply this by our new discount value. And so from our discount percent table, we're going to bring in the discount value. So here's to kind of clear up what we're doing here to make sure this is kind of clear. Again, we're going to learn more about this later, but basically think about this as just a mathematical function. We're going to take the difference between our total sales from our total sales where the discount has been applied to it. And so you can see we're multiplying the discount percent against the total sales, and then we're subtracting that from the total sales to be able to return back what our discounted amount after our sales after the discounted amount is. All right, don't worry, we'll learn more about how this DAX query language works later, but for now I want to show you the capabilities of what the what-if analysis can do. So I'll hit enter on this. It's going to create a new measure here for me called sales after discount, and then what I'll likely do is I'll bring this into something like a column chart. So let's bring in a column chart here where we want to look at the total sales amount and the sales after discount, and then let's look at this as more of a clustered column chart like this. Right now those values are showing the same because we're factoring in a 0% discount. But then let's also bring in something like the date. Let's look at the date factored into this. Okay, and then maybe we drill in a level here so we can see this as the quarter level. And we'll make this a little larger. And again, right now we're looking at a 0% discount, but as we change this slider up top here, we can actually see what it's like when we have a 5% discount. Okay, so you can see how it impacted our sales. We can see what it's like if we did a 20% discount, or if we did a 50% discount, which obviously would be half the amount that we would have made otherwise. So this is a nice little way that you can be able to integrate a what-if analysis and see with this what-if parameter that's passing in values, how it would impact our sales previously to today. So nice little feature built in. Simple way to do it, just a quick review. You go to the modeling ribbon, hit new what-if parameter, and then when you create that parameter, it's going to prompt you to give it a name, a data type, what the range is. Remember, we created our range to be 0 to 0.5, which is 0 to 50%. And then we told it the increments that we wanted to be were 5% increments. And so you're seeing that implemented here. And as you let go of that slider, as soon as I unselect that slider, it's going to show the results inside of our column chart that we have here. So that's really it for this. I'm going to go ahead and delete the visuals that we have here, and I'm going to leave inside of our data model that what-if analysis so you can be able to see that later. But that's really how you can build out those what-if parameters in your data model as well. Let's go ahead and do a quick review of what we talked about in this module. All right, so in this module, we covered a couple things, a pretty short one, but we really got an idea of what is created whenever we create a what-if parameter. So the what-if parameter, how do we do that? There's a nice little button underneath the modeling ribbon where we can do that. We also then talked about how we can integrate the what-if parameter into the rest of our model. So in our case, we integrated it through a measure, which we're going to learn a lot more about measures here shortly. But by doing that, it allowed us to use that nice little slider that was created for us and then see how it impacted our column chart based on a measure that we created. So we created a measure called sales after discount, and that sales after discount integrated in that what-if parameter to be able to analyze the changes in our slicer. So really cool little feature. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We're going to move on now and learn a lot more about DAX that I've kind of been leading up to and talking about quite a bit. So hope you guys enjoy those modules.